Hey everybody, Danny Mod here. Thanks for joining us. This week we're going to cover how close you should stand to the golf ball. We're going to cover exactly why it's important and why it's such a major factor in accuracy and distance of all, from your irons right through to your driver. So many people get confused with how should your hands be here, should they be here, how much body lean should you have. We're going to cover all of that in this week's training. Before we do, look, if this is one of your first videos, consider subscribing. We give you tips and strategies every single week to help improve your game. So without further ado, let's get cracking. How close should you stand to a golf ball, and how do you make sure you get this right every single time? So what we need to do is understand why it's important to get this right. We want power in a golf shot, don't we, right? So if we want power, if we stretch our arms out here and we've got a lot of separation, this isn't a strong position. Imagine lifting something, right? It's not very strong. So we want our arms fairly close. When people get their arms close, they feel a bit restricted. It doesn't feel very nice, but it is stronger. People feel they're more powerful often when they separate their arms from the body, feel they've got more space to swing the golf club. But in fact, they lose control, they lose consistency of strike, and therefore they lose power. So the very first thing we need is when we want our biceps close to our body here, not our elbows, but just the biceps, right? So what we do is biceps come close. We get the club now parallel to the ground here, and we stand nice and tall. And we want the shoulders in their sockets. So that's the first thing. So the upper part of the body now is potentially now in a much stronger position. The second part would be the legs. What do we need to do with the legs to help with accuracy and power? Well, they need to provide support. We don't want to be on our heels, we don't want to be on our toes, and we don't want to be rigid, right? Because if we do, we don't have support to support this lovely swing for accuracy, and we don't have them, the legs, in a way that in a position to generate power. So we're going to give you a routine now that's going to help you not only get the power from the upper power and accuracy from the upper part of the body, but also from the lower part. So nice and simple, get your club out in front of you, nice and parallel here with your biceps touching your chest. From this position, all you're going to do is you're going to hinge from the ball socket joint of your hip, tip forward here until the club touches the ground here. So you're going to let the club just drop to the ground. There should be a nice angle in your back. Check this out in a mirror. A lot of people, when they're bending forward, they bend forward from the top part, not their hip joint. So make sure from the back here, there's a decent angle in your back. From this position, my knees are locked back at this stage. What I want you to do now is push the knees into your laces, so the weight's not on your toes or your heels, but it's really into the balls of your feet. You feel ready. Right, you feel like you can, I can wind back off the ground and I can push off the ground as well. Now, checkpoints here, look, when we're in this position, just to check, see if you got it right. I've said you've got an angle here. Now, you want to be around about hands width away. The grip end here is hands width away from the leg. And another checkpoint here is with the irons. You want the hands almost directly underneath your chin. With a driver, it will be slightly different. With a driver, exactly the same setup. Apart from, you might find with most of the players, we often find, as a general rule, we tend to find that if we go through this position here, we tip forward, we often find that the hands are just slightly ahead of the chin if you're looking in line, but the same principle applies. It's around about hands width away, maybe a little bit more with a driver, but not much. And then you're ready to go. Checking the balance in your legs, and you've got your arms in position, your biceps are nice and connected. This can feel, like I say, for some of you who aren't used to this, it can feel restricted. Could you feel, I want some space to swing that club? It can feel like you're more bent over, is another thing, okay? All these things can feel strange, but look in a mirror, it won't look strange. So let's go through, it sounds simple, doesn't it? Let's go through why some of the pitfalls when people try this. Watch out. It's a nice simple exercise, isn't it, here, but watch out for this. When some people tip forward, they don't realize it, but they've got their shoulders out their sockets. They're rounding off like this, so they put their arms out and these shoulders are here. Make sure they're in their sockets. Step one, biceps connected, yes. But when you hinge, some of you might need to practice putting a club on the line with your hip line here, just to practice hinging from the right place. It sounds strange, but look, as we get older, sometimes we lose awareness of body, or body awareness. And strangely enough, when we try and hinge, even though we're thinking we're hinging from the hips, we're actually hinging from the lower part of the back, so just watch out for that. Really, really simple exercise. Now, one final pitfall. So we're going through this routine, you've started to nail it, all the angles are looking good. Your club's parallel to the ground, you're hinging beautifully forward from the waist, you're pushing into the ground now, you're using the ground as your legs as a source of energy. When you're doing this, please don't do what I see with a lot of people when they work on posture. Turn this into a statue where your legs are just rigid, because look, how are the legs going to generate any power? How are you going to generate a rhythm? Look, yes, we want to be in a great position here, but really feel like those legs have some mobility. They're not on the heels, they're not on the toes, they're ready to wind up and then really rip it through impact. Work on that. But one final thing, when you're here, this is what I see a lot. People go through the system, they get to here, and they bring the club down, it's all ready, but the club's not quite near the ball, and they go like this. And they push the club just a bit out to reach the ball. That's just ruined your entire setup, ruined your entire posture. You've lost connection, and you'll immediately lose power. What we've actually got to do, it's really common, and you might be saying, oh, I never do that, but I see it so often. So when you're setting up, get yourself there and just make sure that you shuffle to the golf ball. Don't get too rigid over this, really feel like you've got some mobility, you know, get yourself set, and then when you're ready to go, let's pull that trigger. Okay, so let's summarize really quickly. This is a very, very simple but so important exercise to work on. You will see so many tall players when they're working, they go through a very consistent routine on getting this right every time because they know how important it is. So how do we go through it again? We put the club out in front of us here, we make sure both shoulders are in their sockets, nice and tall, legs locked back, club parallel to the ground. We're going to hinge from the ball socket joint of the hip. We tip forward, we allow the club then to just touch the ground. From this position here, biceps are both connected, may feel a little bit cramped for some of you. From this position, just push your knees into the laces, don't extend them so you fall backwards like this, you know, just into the laces. These hamstrings should feel quite tight if you're doing it, right? Nice and tight here. Now I'm ready to go. Checkpoints. Hand width away from the leg here. In a mirror, check the hands are falling directly down. They're not out in front of you here. And maybe another checkpoint here is that from the armpit here, it's just going through bisecting the front part of the knee. And that is it. Go through that simple system, work on it every single time. It will set a foundation for your entire golf swing. I hope you enjoy this training. Please share it. This is a really important one that so many people miss out, and it will really benefit. And if you're enjoying this content and you want to receive this in your inbox every single week, then press the subscribe button and the bell. Until next week, have a great golfing week.